Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Elise and this is 10 to Life. There are brand new updates in the case of Harmony Montgomery, the missing 7-year-old from New Hampshire. And quite frankly, these updates have me pretty freaking heated. So we've got a lot to review, even more to discuss. So smash that like button and let's get right into it.
10 to Life with Elise starts right now.
All right, guys, as I mentioned, my name is Elise and this is 10 to Life. I apologize. My voice is pretty hoarse right now. I am just getting over being sick, so I apologize for that. Hopefully it's like a little mysterious and sets the mood, I guess, a little bit better. But in any event, I just want to apologize for that up front. So my returning subscribers, you already get it. You know what we talk about here. And for everybody new stopping by for the first time, welcome. I hope you enjoy the video today and the case coverage that we are going to be going over. As I mentioned, we have new updates in the case of Harmony Montgomery. And like I said in the beginning of this video, these updates have me pretty pissed off. I'm guessing they're going to have you guys equally or more pissed off. So let's talk about them. As we all know, Kayla Montgomery, Harmony's stepmother, has been in custody now for several weeks on fraud charges. And these fraud charges are because of false claims that she was making that Harmony was actually in her possession and in her custody in order to receive state benefits. Now, not only were Kayla's actions of falsely claiming Harmony as a dependent in order to get these benefits indicative, in my opinion, of her knowledge of what happened to Harmony, but also her statement to law enforcement saying that she hadn't seen Harmony since that late November date also is indicative that she knew what happened to Harmony. Because remember, she gave that fictitious story that Adam gave her as far as he took Harmony to Crystal. That's the last time that Kayla ever saw her, which we just learned Kayla was completely lying about. Adam never told her that he was taking Harmony and dropping her off at Crystal's, nor did he ever tell her that Crystal was coming to pick her up. And so we're going to get into all of those details here in just a minute, but let's start with all of those fraud charges. So Kayla had her bail hearing, and her defense was asking for her to be released on ROR with the condition of entering a substance recovery program. The state, of course, argued that Kayla is a direct witness and has information as to what happened to Harmony, and has direct information as to where her whereabouts may be, what may have happened to her, and that she is a key witness. So he was going to bat saying, absolutely, Kayla should not be released. She is like the main person in all of this who knows what's going on. The state continues by referencing the story about that custody exchange between Harmony and Crystal that supposedly happened around when Harmony was last seen. And the state explains that Crystal at this point has now been thoroughly investigated and vetted, and that she has been confirmed to have not been involved. Now, this is something we have not heard of until now. We knew that Crystal was, of course, out there answering questions, doing interviews, that she had been trying to get in contact with Harmony and with Adam but had no luck, but we haven't heard anybody tied to the investigation come forward yet saying that Crystal has been thoroughly investigated and is completely deemed that she had nothing to do with it. So I thought that was, first of all, very interesting to hear. Now, a lot of the information that we hear and that was stated during this bail hearing is also quite interesting to hear. So I'm just going to play it for you guys because I want you to hear it for yourself. Now, you can fast forward if you would like. It's really quick. It's about 15 minutes, but I encourage you to listen, and I encourage you to listen carefully, and I also want you to watch Kayla's body language. And then right after, we're going to talk about it.
All right. So we're here both for an arraignment and a bail hearing this morning. So let me just ask you first, Attorney Garrity, have you reviewed the new complaints with Ms. Montgomery?
I have, Your Honor.
And have you explained to her the maximum penalties for each charge?
I have, Your Honor.
And does she wish to enter pleas on those charges?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
All right. The court will enter pleas of not guilty on those charges. Will you file a waiver of arraignment?
I will, Your Honor.
All right. Very good. Thank you. So Ms. Montgomery, you've gone over the new charges that have been filed with Attorney Garrity?
Yes.
And has he explained to you the maximum penalties for each?
Yes.
And you wish to enter pleas of not guilty on each charge? All right. We're going to now turn to the issue of bail. So I'm going to hear from the state first, and then I will hear from you and your counsel. You can be seated. Mr. Yonia?
Thank you.
The state is requesting that bail stand as ordered at the initial bail hearing. First, let me provide a little bit of background about why we are here. So when we brought the initial welfare fraud charge against the defendant, that was based on documentation that we had received, both the Manchester Police Department and the state had received from DHHS, and a review of that documentation. After bringing that charge, we learned of additional documents that we did not have from DHHS that caused us a little bit of concern. So we reached out, or I personally reached out to Attorney Garrity on a Friday afternoon, which is when we learned of this, and basically told him that we've been informed there may be some issues with the charging, that it could even potentially reduce the charge to a Class B felony. And that was the impetus, I would assume, for the defendant's motion for a bail hearing. That was on a Friday afternoon. DHHS spent the weekend gathering documents to give to us, and on Monday sat down with us to go through things. And what we discovered on Monday was that, while the initial charge may not have been the best charge to bring, that there was still a Class A felony theft charge here due to the amount of benefits stolen on behalf of Harmony by the defendant over that time period. So that was basically the replacement Class A felony. But in addition to that, realized that we could now point, based on this new documentation, to specific instances where the defendant had submitted Harmony on applications or other statements to DHHS with the intent of continuing that fraud and continuing that theft. We identified 8 specific instances of that we could point to. That was why in the objection we said that there would be the Class A felony plus 8 misdemeanors. However, in preparing the misdemeanors for filing, we learned that 6 of those instances fell outside of the 1-year statute of limitations, which is why we only brought the 2 that we did. But those 8 separate instances are detailed in the affidavit filed in support of the theft charge and the misdemeanor welfare fraud charge. So that's sort of the background for the court's benefit of why we're here with these replacement charges. The bail argument is basically that there's no basis to change the bail. Everything in the state's original bail argument continues to still hold true. And if anything, it has only gotten worse in terms of the defendant's status as a flight risk. She was originally facing 1 Class A felony charge. Now she's facing the Class A felony charge and the 2 misdemeanors. Each of those misdemeanors potentially adding an additional year to the maximum sentence that the defendant could face at the end of this. Another argument that the state made at the initial bail hearing was the issue of the defendant's shelter, and that she might potentially lose her ability to stay at FIT because of this charge. Part of the defendant's current bail order is that if she's released, she is to live with her mother on Dubuque Street. I'm not sure if that's a possibility at this point because of the custody situation with the children and the fact that the defendant's mother has custody of the children at that address. I'm not sure if both the defendant and the children can be together at that same address.
What would be the basis for them not being together?
Just because custody has been temporarily given to the defendant's mother, is my understanding.
But there's no contact provision, or
I'm not sure on that, Your Honor. I've been told there might be a potential situation where they couldn't both be, the children and the defendant both be at the same place.
Okay, have you checked on those custody orders?
Not now, no.
So, as far as you're aware, there isn't an order in any sort of court order or DCYF order that precludes her from being there. or
As
being
far as
at
I'm
that.
aware, there's no.
There is not.
As far as I'm aware, there is no.
And at our previous hearing, you indicated that she had some limited prior criminal history. Were there any failures to appear in those cases?
Not that I'm aware of.
Right. And at our last hearing, I mean, there is a motion to reconsider, so I am considering all of the information. You agreed with the court that typically on these kinds of charges, an individual wouldn't necessarily have a cash bail, and which has now resulted really in preventive detention, which is, I think, not what the state has asked for. Is there anything you want to add on that point?
So there is. This continues to be and continues to become even more of an unusual case. I believe Your Honor at the last hearing characterized it as an unusual request, and my answer was that it was an unusual case. It continues to be an unusual case. For the past 4 weeks, the Manchester Police Department, the FBI, and the U.S. Marshals have been working tirelessly and around the clock to find Herman Montgomery. The time period in question in this charge is a time period for which Harmony Montgomery was completely unaccounted for. This charge begins when Harmony disappeared, and that's the reason for this charge, because she wasn't with the defendant, and the defendant continued to receive benefits on her behalf and continue to make these affirmative representations that Harmony was still part of the household. One of the things that the court can consider, and this was the state's argument at the last hearing, if the court is going to impose a financial condition that will result in the pretrial detention of the defendant, which is the situation we're in, the court can do that if the nature of the allegations presents a substantial risk that the defendant will not appear and that no reasonable alternative will assure her appearance. So this is a case where the nature of the allegations weigh extremely strongly in favor of the defendant being flight risk because of where the case is going, because of where the investigation is going. This isn't a white lie. This isn't a simple lie. This is an approximately 18-month-long lie to get welfare benefits for a child who has disappeared, despite a month of around-the-clock efforts of 3 strong law enforcement agencies to locate her. She still has not appeared. I suggest that that makes this defendant a strong flight risk. She knows what law enforcement is closing in on them. Maybe now it looks like an innocuous theft charge, welfare fraud charges, but she knows what we are going to learn through the investigation.
But you're not giving me any facts related to that. I mean, law enforcement spoke with Ms. Montgomery prior to her being arrested. Is that correct?
Correct.
And how long prior to that did they speak to her?
Roughly a week, approximately.
So is that when she first became aware that this investigation was going on?
I would assume so. And according to the affidavit, what she told police at that time was that her husband, Adam Montgomery, had taken Harmony to live with her mother the day after Thanksgiving in 2019. We know that that's not true. And without getting into the full details of the investigation, Harmony's mother has been extremely cooperative. She has been thoroughly investigated. Individuals in her life have been thoroughly investigated. There's no evidence that Harmony was with her, no credible evidence that Harmony was with her after Thanksgiving of 2019 or long before that. In addition, that's where I'll stop, Judge. I'm trying to balance carefully being candid with the court while still protecting the ongoing investigation of the count into this missing child.
I understand that. I guess to the extent that you're suggesting, however, that she be held because she knows where the child is. Is there some evidence that the state can share with the court as to why you think, what essentially what you're saying is that her report about what she, Ms. Montgomery, knew is inaccurate?
There is at least one individual who has told Manchester Police Department that he saw Harmony living with Adam and Kayla after that date when Kayla says that Harmony was taken back to her mom.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Yardy?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, I would ask the court, and it seems like the court is doing so, focus on the language of the statute that speaks about the nature of the allegations. The allegations before the court are a Class A felony theft and 2 misdemeanor counts of welfare fraud. Whatever is suggested or alluded to by the state is not before the court. It's not an allegation that is facing Ms. Montgomery. But the nature of the allegations are the theft and the welfare fraud. Those typically call for PR bail. None of those charges would pose a substantial risk that the person will not appear. As I'm sure the court knows, people charged in this court with much more serious offenses get PR bail. In fact, I know last week, I believe, an individual charged with Class A felony first degree assault, stabbing an individual, appeared before Judge Delger and was released on PR bail. That type of offense, the nature of that allegation would pose a substantial risk of life potentially, not a theft or welfare fraud. And in particular with Ms. Montgomery, her criminal history is relatively minor and involves mostly misdemeanors. There are no failures to appear that I can find on her record. And in fact, her most recent offense that took place in Merrimack District Court, she was arrested by the Bedford PD in May of 2015, appeared and resolved that case in September of 2015. And there's no indication she was held on bail, so she was arrested in May of 2015, appeared as required, September, resolved it. That case involved a disposition of a LADAC and restitution. She did the LADAC, she paid restitution, and she showed up the following year as she was required to because she had a deferred sentence. She showed up in September of 2016 and showed the court cause to close the case. And the record shows that that's what took place. And I think that that case shows that she will show up for future court appearances, that she will comply with court orders that this court issues. Her ties are also to the Manchester area. She has 3 small children. They're 4 years old, 2 years old, 1 year old. Right now, they're residing with her mother on Dubuque Street. I could tell the court I spoke with Ms. Montgomery's DCYF attorney. There is no contact between Ms. Montgomery and the children. However, her attorney indicates that DCYF may take certain steps with the children if Ms. Montgomery goes back to live with her mother. She knew that the police were interested in this case. They started to interview her shortly after Christmas of 2021. They spoke with her on 3 or 4 occasions. They were showing up at the Families in Transition program that she was residing at with her children on almost a daily basis. And she had about a week and a half, if my math is correct, week and a half time to take off if she wanted to. She didn't have the means to do so. She had her children with her. Her family is from Manchester. She grew up in Manchester. She's lived here since about 9 years old, went to school in Manchester. All of her ties are to this community. There's no indication whatsoever that she's a flight risk. But she does have an issue that she knows has to be dealt with. So I can tell the court I've had communication with Cynthia Day program down in Nashua. They're going to evaluate Ms. Montgomery for intake into Cynthia Day. That program would address many of the needs that Ms. Montgomery has and also allow her children to be with her because that's a family type of environment. So what we're asking the court to do is to set bail, a PR bail, upon her entry into the Cynthia Day program or a similar type program.
Do you have a reason to believe that she would be eligible for Cynthia Day?
I can tell the court I spoke with the program, one of the directors there. I spoke to them about whether or not, if she was released on bail, could she go into the program? She indicated it would be a better situation if she was sent directly from Valley Street down to the program. So Ms. Montgomery is asking the court, and understanding the situation with Cynthia Day and what they view as the optimal intake position, she's asking the court to set PR bail upon her entry into the program. And it appears that she meets the criteria for entry into the program.
But she would need, that would require her to have her children with her, right?
No, it does not. It does not. So the children would stay with the mother. They could visit with her as Cynthia Day. Cynthia Day tells me that they have a limit of 2 children in terms of residing overnight, but all 3 could visit with her at the program.
And Cynthia Day, so they're currently, the state has currently asked that were she to be released, that she check in with the Manchester Police Department daily.
You could do that by telephone. She doesn't have a car, so she wouldn't be able to drive from Nashua up to Manchester. And I'm not sure of the location of Cynthia Day with respect to the Nashua Police Department in terms of checking in with them as a condition of bail. She could do that by telephone or by Zoom, if that's what the court calls for.
And she could sign a release that Cynthia Day would be required to immediately notify the state were she to leave the
She would.
program.
She would, Your Honor.
And she has otherwise no objection to any of the conditions that the state previously requested.
No, Your Honor.
All right. And she can be evaluated for that program. And I should say this, the court has made no decisions here, but the court is taking into consideration all of the requests. She can be evaluated for that program while she's incarcerated.
She can. In fact, I spoke to, I believe her name is Miss Loader from Cynthia Day. I asked her specifically what if she was released on bail and then into the program. Miss Loader indicated that's not the best situation for Cynthia Day. That the way they operate, it's better for them if the individual is transported directly from the jail to their program. And the fear, Judge, is if someone is released on bail, there's a possibility of some sort of relapse, and then they don't get the benefit of the program.
There's reason to believe that substance use is an issue that would qualify her for the program.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Is there anything anyone would like to add?
No, Your Honor.
The court will take this under advisement and issue an order probably later today. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, so after watching that, I first want to point out Kayla's body language. So to me, she seems very disinterested and just kind of is swaying back and forth with her chair, just kind of rolling as though she doesn't either see the severity or care, I guess, about the severity of what's being discussed in this hearing as far as the other elements regarding Harmony actually missing. So to me, she doesn't seem to be fully engaged in the conversation or focused, but what do you guys think? I just felt as though if you're somebody who's truly only there to face fraud charges, that you really don't know anything about Harmony's whereabouts or what happened to her, that you would show a little bit more emotion or you would be concentrating more on the conversation. It just didn't seem to me, at least, that she was that engaged. But again, tell me what you guys think. We also hear the state discuss, again, how Crystal Sorey, Harmony's biological mother, has been fully investigated and was not, at all tied to the disappearance or harming of Harmony. But we also hear the state plead with the judge not to release Kayla because she has direct knowledge of what happened to Harmony, and that he knows this and knows that she has direct knowledge because she lied to law enforcement about when she last saw Harmony. Now, this was something that could have easily been missed had people not been listening carefully. So I want to just go over this. And as a reminder, when this case first emerged and everybody was talking about it, Adam was questioned by law enforcement, and he told law enforcement that Crystal picked Harmony up around Thanksgiving. But when Kayla was questioned, the stepmother, she told law enforcement that Adam had told her he took Harmony back over to Crystal's house around Thanksgiving. So their stories weren't matching up from the beginning, and most people assumed it was because Adam lied to Kayla about taking Harmony to go back over to Crystal's to cover his tracks as far as whatever he had done to Harmony or whatever was going to happen to Harmony. But spoiler alert, Adam did not lie to Kayla and lie about taking Harmony to Crystal's house. They just did not have their stories straight. And now it's no wonder that their stories didn't match up as far as Harmony being dropped off at Crystal's or Crystal picking Harmony up, because it wasn't true. Neither of them were true, and Kayla knew that the entire time. And one of them, which we don't know who, happened to just accidentally mess up which version of the drop-off pickup story they were going to give and that they had concocted. Now, which version was the original version that they were supposed to tell people if asked? I don't know, but one of them messed it up. And we know that neither of those stories were true now because it has been confirmed that Kayla and Adam were seen with Harmony after that infamous date of the custody exchange. So not only did Kayla lie about Adam telling her the story that he was going to be dropping Harmony off at Crystal's, but also Crystal never came to pick up Harmony. They were with Harmony after this fictitious date of the exchange took place. Again, to me, that is just one more solid proof reason that is indicative of Kayla knowing exactly what happened to Harmony. She lied about that story, first of all. And if you're not covering anything up, why do you have to lie? First of all, she claimed the benefits on her, saying that Harmony was in her possession when she knew she wasn't, or I guess she should say she knew she wasn't in anybody's possession, but she knew she wasn't with Crystal. She has lied so many times along the way, specifically to Harmony's whereabouts and her last known sightings. An innocent person does not do that. An innocent person doesn't lie multiple times over multiple circumstances regarding when a 5-year-old was last seen. Because remember, Harmony was only 5 years old when all of this was happening. And even with all of this, because the charges against Kayla were related to the fraud charges and not charges directly tied to Harmony's disappearance, the judge was unable to use any of that information to actually make a decision regarding Kayla's bail and regarding the request from her defense attorney. And so to everybody's disappointment and extreme frustration, she granted Kayla's attorney's request. And so let's go over that order here now. Here you can see the order of the state versus Kayla Montgomery, and I'm going to put this on the screen and read it to you. The defendant appeared before the court today for an arraignment and bail hearing. She waived formal reading of the charges and entered pleas of not guilty. The defendant is presently charged with 1 count of theft by deception and 2 counts of welfare fraud. It goes on to talk about how some of those charges originally changed and were upgraded, and then they added some additional felony charges on. Then it says, the state requests that the bail remain as set in the amount of $5,000 cash or surety with conditions, arguing that the nature of the allegations support a finding that the defendant presents a risk of flight. Of course, they are concerned that she will be a flight risk because she has information on this other ongoing case. The defendant is indigent and has been unable to post bail as set. The standard for setting bail in this matter includes that the court shall not impose a financial condition that will result in the pretrial detention of a person solely as a result of that financial condition, unless the court determines by clear and convincing evidence that the nature of the allegation presents a substantial risk that the person will not appear and that no reasonable alternative will assure the person's appearance. Again, unfortunately, this is just a technicality because of the charges that she's actually being charged with at this time. The defense does not object to bail remaining at $5,000 cash or surety, nor any of the other significant bail conditions proposed by the state, including the daily check-ins with the Manchester Police Department. The defense requests, however, that the bail convert to personal recognizance upon entry into a treatment program. The defendant has a limited criminal history and has no history of failing to appear for court appearances. She has also previously complied with court-ordered conditions conditions of a deferred sentence. Additionally, the defense notes that she was aware of the police investigation regarding Harmony Montgomery for approximately 10 days prior to her arrest on the initial welfare charge and made no attempt to flee. Her contacts in the state are significant. She is a nearly lifelong resident of New Hampshire, and her children and extended family members are here. The court is mindful of the serious nature of the state's investigation regarding Harmony Montgomery. However, the issue before the court at this time is the risk of flight of the defendant based upon the theft and welfare charges. Taking into consideration the evidence and arguments presented, the court does not find that the state has met its burden to show by clear and convincing evidence that there are no conditions that the court can set that will reasonably assure her appearance on the charges pending against her. Therefore, bail will remain as set at $5,000 cash or surety. However, it shall convert to personal recognizance upon entry into a successful completion of the Cynthia Day program. The court will also impose significant additional conditions. The defendant shall sign a release of information at the program to allow the state to monitor compliance and allow the program to immediately notify the state should she leave or be discharged for any reason. The defendant shall be required to check in daily by phone with the Manchester Police Department. She is required to sign a waiver of extradition before her release and have no contact with Adam Montgomery. She may not travel outside the state of New Hampshire. These conditions, as well as additional standard conditions, are set forth in the Superior Court bail order issued on today's date. So the biggest thing that stuck out to me regarding this treatment center is I did some research on the Cynthia Day Center, and it offers both inpatient and outpatient services. Now, in this order, it isn't specified if Kayla will be participating in inpatient or outpatient. It does say that they have to notify the state if she doesn't show up or if she gets discharged, which leads me to believe it's inpatient. However, it's not exactly outlined, so I'm not exactly 100% sure on that. And if you know otherwise, please let me know in the comments below. Also, Kayla is ordered to have no contact with Adam Montgomery. But I would like to know how they exactly plan to monitor that, because I'm sure that she can find a friend or a family member to relay messages to Adam. And whether those messages to him tell him that she didn't talk or to give him a heads up on something, it still allows for opportunity for them to get their story straight and essentially get them on the same side. So I'm hopeful. I don't know how they're going to monitor it, but I'm hopeful that they do monitor that, because I'm guessing she somehow is going to make contact with Adam. That is just my guess, because at this point, I would imagine she is in survival mode. She wants to cover her tracks. She wants to make sure he knows she's covered for him, unless she has, of course, struck a deal, which might still be the case, but TBD. She was also ordered not to leave the state. Now, this I would imagine can easily be identified by her check-ins, whether it is inpatient or outpatient, so at that treatment center. So I don't think that this is a huge risk here. But part of her release also requires Kayla to check in with law enforcement daily by phone. Now, while that's good, I guess that's good. It also gives her the opportunity to be anywhere when making those phone calls and making those check-ins, unless she is in fact in an inpatient center. Lastly, the state says that they will monitor Kayla's compliance with going to the treatment center, and that the center is also required to inform the state should Kayla not show up or be discharged from the program for any reason. So while I understand the terms of this order, given the charges, it does seem rather lax in my opinion, because it gives Kayla the opportunity to further cover her tracks, to travel to certain areas within the state to clean things up or dispose of things, or move things from certain locations to other locations. It just presents a lot more room for opportunity here. And I'm hopeful somebody's monitoring her steps, but who knows, honestly? Who knows, right? So a press release also came out regarding the two vehicles of Adam's and some other information regarding the case. So let's just take a look at this press release. So here it states all of the key players involved and that they're providing an update on the investigation into the disappearance of Harmony Montgomery. The investigation to date has narrowed the window of Harmony's disappearance to approximately November 28th to December 10th, 2019. According to information learned by police, Adam and Kayla Montgomery, together with their two common children and Adam's daughter Harmony, were evicted from 77 Guilford Street in Manchester on November 27th, 2019. Multiple individuals have reported seeing taking Harmony with Adam and Kayla in the following days. However, by approximately December 6th to 10th of 2019, Adam and Kayla apparently had only their 2 common children, and Harmony was no longer with them. This information leads police to believe that it was sometime during the window of approximately November 28th to December 10th that Harmony Montgomery disappeared. Witnesses have reported that during that time, Adam, Kayla, and the children were homeless and living out of cars, possibly in the north end of Manchester. One of those cars was a silver 2010 Chrysler Sebring, and the other was a dark blue 2006 Audi S4. Stock photos of these cars are attached to this release for reference. The actual condition of the cars in 2019 was worse than depicted in these photos. In addition, the Sebring's rear license plate was askew. Manchester police continue to request that anyone with information please call or text, and it gives the 24-hour dedicated tip line, and anyone who interacted with Adam and Kayla or saw the children during that time frame to come forward and answer some questions and share information. And they go on to say any information, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem, may contribute to the overall investigation. Now, this is really interesting because they're narrowing the timeline here a little bit more, saying that it was between November 28th and December 10th, 2019. Well, we already know that Kayla's mom spoke out and she had given that December 6th date. So does that narrow it even more to the 28th to the 6th of December? And I want to remind you, if you missed it on my previous video, we had made a timeline on here. And you know what? Let me actually just pull it up right here for you really quickly. But we put together a timeline where we talked through all of those key dates and what the opportunity was and when Harmony could have gone missing. Okay, so here you can see, and we talk about this timeline a lot more on my other video where I give you my theories as to what I believe had happened and when, and so you can watch that later if you want. You can see in the thumbnails below in my video list, it has the picture on the thumbnail of this timeline, but let's just kind of go over this really quick. So on the 28th of November, that's when Adam later told law enforcement that it was the day Crystal had come to pick up Harmony. And then Adam the following day tells Kayla he's taking Harmony to Crystal's house, which we now know is a lie. So, but right here, 11:29 to 12:02, a neighbor returns from Thanksgiving vacation and the entire family was gone. And that is when law enforcement in that press release is saying too that they were evicted. And we know that the family was squatting prior to this. And then Kayla's mother's last known sighting is in the window of the 29th to the 6th. So if you look at this timeline, it does coincide with these new dates of November 28th to December 10th, but it also kind of narrows it even a little further to the 28th to the 6th, especially because of that neighbor who says that she returned, I think it was around even all the way to the 2nd, and none of the family was there and none of the kids. So I think that window is becoming tighter. If they were living homeless in a car all together, the 3 children in total, when they left the property, and that's assuming they all left together, I want to know that person who spoke out and said they saw Adam and Kayla with Harmony after the 28th and the 29th, which is those last known sightings that they had said. I want to know what date that was. And I'm sure that law enforcement has that information. They're just not sharing it yet. And I'm sure they're not sharing who that witness is. But I think that piece of information is also going to be absolutely critical to nailing down and narrowing in actually an even closer tight timeline as to when Harmony truly disappeared. And then from there, perhaps they can look through any tech that they had, if there are any sort of GPS records on the vehicle to know whatever their whereabouts were within that, if it's a tighter 2 or 3 day span. Because right here, you have about a 10-day spread, 12 days that law enforcement is giving, but you have an even tighter spread of 8 days, according to Kayla's mother, when she last saw Harmony. So I would imagine that whoever the witness is that also saw Harmony, I would imagine that timeline would get even tighter. And then from there, how do you source the information through, electronically transmitted information, whatever it may be tech-wise, to figure out the whereabouts, the pattern, the locations visited, the people visited, and determine something from there. So unfortunately, this ruling and Kayla now being released, even if it is into a treatment center, is just one more extremely disappointing example of adults failing Harmony in this case. It's like we take a 1 step forward only to take 3 steps back. And for Harmony's sake, I truly hope that Kayla's movements are being monitored, and I hope that she slips up and she goes somewhere and does something, or goes somewhere to talk to someone and says something and shares something. I just hope that her movements and her phone calls, whether it's in the treatment center or not, are being monitored. And I hope she slips up, because I hope she is so panicked and deeply rooted, has like this deeply rooted panic in her right now, that she gets released and just starts calling to cover her tracks. I'm hopeful that she's not bright enough to not do that, but only time will tell. So we're going to keep following this closely together, guys, and I'm going to keep sharing information with you as I receive it and as I hear more and as I put puzzle pieces together more. So if you enjoyed this coverage and you want to know more about the case and more about what I put together and come up with, make sure you hit that subscribe button below so that you get notified of these new videos as they get posted. Thank you guys again for taking the time to listen with me today, and I apologize again for this like scratchy hoarse voice. I hope it didn't make it too unbearable. I hope you enjoy the case coverage, guys. Until the next case, stay safe. Bye.